Hey folks, happy day before the day before Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're getting stuff done today because we know you're not going to get anything done tomorrow. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about. Can you see this? This location uses information for mobile devices. What's happening on Thursday? Not for me. Turkey, kids are going to go to the movies. I catch up on some reading, get to the gym. But lots of you are running to Black Friday shopping, starting as early as Thursday, late night, early morning. I don't get it. Whatever. You like doing it. Get your bargains. All power to you. However, we do want to talk about some of the privacy implications. As you know, your location is being transmitted when you carry that mobile phone around with you. And retailers who are going to be dealing with giant crowds, they're spending a lot of money already advertising to you on TV, in the newspapers, online, because they would like you to come to their Black Friday sales. And there will be thousands of people on lines. You're going to move around the store in big mobs. There are going to be lines at registers and retailers and other venues, airports. A lot of you are traveling. The lines are going to get long. How does airport management understand when and where the lines are getting long, besides visually looking at this? If you manage staff across a major airport or across malls across the country, the information about how people move around is critical. If there's an emergency, how would people evacuate? Well, you're sharing this information. You're sharing it because you've got your phone with you. Now let's talk a little bit about the various ways that this information is shared. We're the tech optimists. We work with a lot of the privacy staff at these companies. We like to see them doing a good job at providing controls. But at the end of the day, and we do think that these are useful tools, but at the end of the day, we want you, our friends, to have the ability to say, thank you, I'm a little more privacy sensitive, don't want it, don't trust you, don't want it going to those companies, don't want those targeted ads, think it's too creepy, think it's intrusive, I'm worried about it, or I just couldn't be bothered. So we want you to have the information, even though we like the uses of these technologies. We're optimists. I like knowing exactly how long the wait time is at Dulles Airport, which I fly out of a lot. Yes, I have a TSA pre, so I go to the head of the line. I've given up my privacy for that. I've made that trade-off. But for many of you who are standing on the line, get the TSA pre. It's worth the trade-off, I think. But for those of you who are standing on those lines, you certainly want to know where to go to get the line that's 5 minutes, not the one that's 25 minutes. So how do they know? So let's talk about a couple of different ways. First, let's start with the easy stuff. All right. Got my new Pixel. Should be able to deduct this, don't you think? But I don't. It's my personal device, even though I'm going to use it for this nice business purpose. And so looking at my Pixel, and I want to figure out how to be a little more privacy friendly. So I go to the settings. Let's go to the home screen first. I go to settings, and when I go to settings, I don't see anything that says privacy there or location. So I'll scroll down a little bit, and there it is, security and location. If you're using an iPhone, they had a location setting. It is now nicely under privacy, so that's cool. Something worth discussing with our Googly friends, although perhaps they will tell us that their research says that people look for security, they look for location, these things fit together. All right, so I'm hitting location, and again, I got to scroll down. So lesson one, the good stuff, scroll down. And when I scroll down, I find that my location is on with high accuracy. I'm sharing great detail. I've approved the location services of the phone, which is a tool that the phone provides, both to send back information to Google for location services for this system they provide, sometimes for the different Google apps, and very often so that other apps that I have given location permission can also have that location. All right, so get it. It's going to three sort of places. One is the Google location services, the system that works to combine the cell towers that your phone is connecting with or that can detect the local Wi-Fi networks, which have been mapped so your phone knows where they are, and if necessary, satellites. In the old days, we had only the satellites, and that's why when you sat in your car, you'd wait and wait and wait until that little device captured your location. Now, it's looking at the cell towers. That can be very accurate if you happen to live near a cell tower or at the intersection of some cell towers in densely populated areas where there are a lot of cell towers. That can be reasonably accurate. For a lot of us who live throughout the country in more rural areas, the nearest cell tower can be far away, and that can be miles, so it can be much coarser. Anyway, the location services work with a chip on your phone to pull that together and to constantly be refining it. So when you set up your phone, you probably said, okay, you probably clicked through a screen that said Apple or Google can scan around near me, recording the location of the local Wi-Fi networks in order to come up with this. Probably if I asked you, you'd say, no, I don't want that to happen. But they did ask you, and you clicked through and you said yes. And as a result, your phone knows where all those Wi-Fi networks are. And not only that, you're sharing, thank you very much, you're contributing. You've donated this Thanksgiving. You've donated the information about the nearby Wi-Fi towers to those location databases so that all of us, when I call my Uber, when you use your Google Maps, the local Wi-Fi towers are telling your phone, after they talk back home, exactly where you are on that map. So it's one of these things that many of us may not be aware of. You did click through this. I got the screenshots to prove it. We do click through it and approve it, but many of you probably just went through the setup, and as a result, you're in this system. A little bit of an aside, those of us who are following the European privacy regulations, right? You know, the GDPR, the major gosh darn privacy rules or general data protection regulation, GDPR, which comes into effect in May, is going to be followed very soon thereafter. How soon, we don't know. It's supposed to be ready by May. It's been delayed with a set of rules that will apply specifically to anything from an end user terminal like this, like your phone or your computer. And those are a bit stricter. Personal information from those devices cannot be collected without your express consent. Now, just think about that. We just talked about your router at home. Your home router is displaying, unless you're one of the technically smart people who turn this off and is hiding your network from broadcasting into the street. Most of us have it on so that we can easily see it, or others, family members or guests, can see your home network. As you know, you can see the other home networks nearby. Some of them are named, you know, Jules is home. Others are certainly broadcasting an ID. It's personal. It's locked into my house. What permission does your phone have in Europe when the e-privacy regulation chips in? You remember, you said to the phone, hey, go ahead, take my info, and go take what I can see. But my home, and all the people who have those home Wi-Fi routers, who's asking their permission when they set up their router and are broadcasting this into the air? Europeans have already declared that that's personal information. So I hope smarter people than me who are working on drafting this legislation are get into the weeds on how the location services work, and we need to figure out perhaps whether that is the kind of information that PII that's being broadcast into the street that could be collected by default because there's a legitimate interest perhaps, or other, if we're worried about legitimate interests, some of the civil society are worried that creates too many openings for businesses to take and use data, maybe something of the sort, because clearly this is a place where there is a default sharing your Wi-Fi router information broadcast into the street in front of your house enables this very valuable location service. All right, but I went off on a tangent, a policy tangent for those of us who are interested in that. Let's get back for a quick second to the phone, and then I want to talk about some of the other kinds of tracking that maybe people don't know about as well. Okay, so you're sharing location with the location services that Google provides. You're sharing location with Apple or Google because they're providing a number of apps and operating system technologies on your phone, and you are potentially providing information to a whole bunch of apps on iOS. We've all seen that dialogue. Hey, can I have your location information? I'll show you some of the controls here on my Pixel. So here's another nice thing that I will suggest that some of you do, because maybe you didn't pay attention. You downloaded some apps and you got all set up. So there's a nice little screen, again, right after settings, called apps and notifications. And when I open that, it will show me the apps that I have recently used. So obviously I've used Google, I've used Google Maps. Have I given location information to some of these? Here, let's look at some others. See all 125. All right, I'm going to list all my 125 apps. Let's see who we got here. We got Amtrak. All right, I got my Amtrak app. I'm going to open it up. No permissions granted. All right, I probably would give Amtrak my location so that they pull up the local place. Let's take a look at another one. Alexa, did I give? Oh, I gave Alexa no permission. I want to find one that I gave my location to so you can see what that looks like. All right, I gave my location, it looks like, to Airbnb. Hello, Airbnb. So you see that permission screen? It says location. I'm going to click on it. In fact, you can see all the permissions that I gave Airbnb. I gave it only location, you see? I'm careful about that. You may not have been careful. You may have given Airbnb access to your contacts, your camera. Oh, you know what? Some of you I know were worried about whether Facebook, let's look at what Facebook is accessing. I know some of you were worried about what is Facebook, are they listening, right? I did a post a couple of days ago explaining that Facebook is not using your phone. But of course, if you want to know and you don't trust, let's look at the permissions. And there you go. I've given Facebook access to my camera, right? Because I want to upload pictures and so forth. My contacts, because it recommends to me various friends, and I've given it location. Not the microphone. I don't make calls using Facebook, so Facebook does not need my microphone. And so if you're one of the people who thinks somehow Facebook is listening to your microphone, actually take a look and see whether you've given them permission, because if they don't have it, they certainly aren't. And again, they say they're not doing it in any case. Okay, so let me show you one more thing. I explained to you the value of that looking for Wi-Fi networks. If you turn off location, well, you're not contributing to the public good anymore and sharing the local Wi-Fi networks. You are, you're right. Companies did not want you to stop being a grateful Thanksgiving contributor. So the default is, let me go to the location permissions again. Let's go back to security, and I'm pulling up location. All right, look at this screen now. You see what it says here? It says scanning, right? See, location is on. Let's turn location off, right? No, don't want the location services. Now let's look closely. See the scanning? What's under there? Wow, you see that? Wi-Fi and Bluetooth scanning. So even if I've turned location off, given that there is this public good of you sharing the Wi-Fi networks that are nearby, the phone by default will continue scanning, saying, hey, this Wi-Fi network called Best Buy is exactly at this latitude and longitude. Hey, this Wi-Fi number is at such and such address, so that that database continues to be built. So if you don't want that to happen either, hey, you're stingy, don't do that, because you're making location services less accurate for everybody. And if you don't want to use location services, fine. But if you're someone who takes advantage of the fact that I'm sharing, then why aren't you sharing, right? All right, I'm kidding. Obviously, if you don't want it, turn it off. But I just wanted to remind you that turning off the location does not prevent local Wi-Fi networks that are being tracked to be sent back to the companies that provide the location services. All right, let's move on. You've now maybe hopefully left those settings on, because you're going to get pleasantly targeted ads over the weekend that hopefully will give you useful things. But if you've been creeped out or you just don't like it, please go ahead, flip that location setting off. Maybe you save some battery. Or go in, check which apps you've given your location to, right? Because you don't want to be flipping it on and off. You need it for the Uber, you need it for your GPS, but why should you be giving it to all these apps? Now again, what are these apps doing with it? They're typically, if they're an app that needs it because they're a location related app, okay. But typically they're sharing it with ad networks who are embedded in that app with an SDK, a standard developers kit. And that kit is sending that location to these third-party ad networks, who are then learning that you are this sort of a person who shops at these stores, or maybe they're geo-targeting ads, or maybe CVS. CVS got one of the most location-friendly or focused or targeted apps. CVS knows when you're at CVS and will be using information. The other quick thing is, when you turn off location services, you may have Bluetooth on. You may have downloaded apps that work with Bluetooth beacons, say a retail app that interacts with beacons in a store. So although you've turned location off, if your app is interacting with a beacon, well, then they kind of know you're in that store near that beacon, right? So you might want to toggle that off for a while, or at least understand that that is a different setting. iOS will turn off iBeacon, a format that Apple works with, but not necessarily other apps that work with other formats of transmitting this information over Bluetooth. So keep that in mind. There have also been some bad actors that, despite you turning off location services, take advantage of the fact that apps can sometimes also have the ability to look at the Wi-Fi networks or cell towers and still get location, even though the user has said turn off location service. The FTC already brought an action against a company called InMobi in that regard. So hopefully others are not doing it. But again, do want to make the point that this is not foolproof. All right, let's talk about that airport and the retail thing, right? You're not sharing with apps. You've already done your good privacy. But you have your Wi-Fi on, or you have Bluetooth on. So your phone is broadcasting the MAC address of your phone into the air, right? You can see when you look at the local Wi-Fi networks, what Wi-Fi networks are there. The Wi-Fi networks or devices that work similarly can see that your phone is there, right? And this is so that you can click to get on or click to, put yourself and authenticate. But that means that your phone is pinging, all right? And the information that's being transmitted is very basic. It's the MAC address of your phone, the antenna, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna access information, media access card. Okay, that's kind of like a cookie, isn't it, right? Those of you who know some of the basics of cookies, right? The reason that websites want to log the cookie that has been set on your browser, which your browser is sending back, is so that they can understand, are you a repeat visitor? How are you moving throughout the system? Which ads? They set a cookie when an ad was delivered. They set that cookie and they really read that cookie. Now, when you've come to their site, so they understand how their advertising is working. Well, when you're broadcasting your MAC address, it's almost like a cookie. And so working with location analytics companies, retailers or airports can count the number of unique MAC addresses so they know how many people are in the space. They can count that wait time online instead of giving the back person a card and then collecting it at the front and saying, okay, it took 3.5 minutes. They can count the amount of time, so it's really useful. But if, again, you have said to me, hearing this, or you said to your friends, oh my God, Polonetsky's telling me that my phone's tracked, even when these location services are off, that I'm broadcasting an ID into the air, there's something you can do about it. Now, there's no setting, unfortunately. You could turn off Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, but that's kind of rude. You won't connect to your earbuds anymore. You'll interfere with some of the connectivity you want. You don't want to turn that off. So what did we do? We worked with the companies who do this, who started being criticized when the media started saying, hey, what's happening there? We don't like that. That's too creepy. People can't escape that. So we created smart-places.org. You may have seen this sign. You didn't see it? Well, look. I know you walk into a store, you're not looking for privacy signs on the wall, but they are there sometimes. Or just go to smart-places.org. We explain to you how to find the MAC address on your phone. Agreed that not everybody knows. And if you type it in, then the companies that are participating, about a dozen of them, we push a hashed version of it to them, and they've all agreed that they will not track your MAC. Do not track my MAC. So on Thursday, on Black Friday, if you're shopping, your phone is being tracked, both for ad targeting. Go ahead and use the location services to decline that. But you're also being tracked, often to aggregate that information, sometimes for more. And if you opt out at smartplaces.org, we'll work with those companies to make sure that you are out of that system. Okay, one last thing. Hopefully I calmed you down and gave you some information. Now I want to leave you a little bit concerned because it's good to be a little bit worried about privacy and what's going on. And also another tie to Thanksgiving. So I'm joined by Stacey Gray, our superb policy counsel. Stacey works on the really fun issues here. We work on a lot of great issues, but I think she's got the funnest ones. Location, ad tech, smart home, what else? Microphones in the home.
That's not enough
smart
stuff?
TVs. She's really busy. She's always here later than me. So Stacey was just sharing a interesting story that we're going to look a little bit more into because it resonates. Those of us who are having some difficult conversations around the Thanksgiving table because of differences in political persuasions, this might resonate with you. So what did you see?
Yeah, so some of you may have seen the reports from last week, particularly an article in the Washington Post, and then Mashable picked it up, about location data being used to see where people are going on Thanksgiving. And I think this is a great way to end the conversation, Jules, now that we've talked through all of the consumer settings and controls, because it's a really great example of what you can do with location data when it's really precise and when you have it through time tied to an individual. A lot of the third-party location collectors that work behind the common apps that most people use describe this data as anonymous, usually because it's not tied to your name or your email, but it's just tied to an identifier. But if you have enough location over time, what you can do is what you saw in this study that came out last week from researchers from UCLA and Washington State University, where they worked with a location data provider and they looked at anonymized but individual location data over time and looked at where people were going during Thanksgiving after last year's election, so 2016. And when you have location data that's individualized, you can see roughly where that device is every day, and you can see where it is at night, and you can kind of infer from that where someone lives. And they compared inferences about where people live with the precinct level census-driven data about political views, and we're able to show that people going home for the holidays from a politically different part of the geographical area to a place with a different, so from a largely Democratic area to a largely Republican area or vice versa, people that are inferred to be going to a partisan or politically divided family spent something like 30 minutes less time on Thanksgiving Day with their families than they did previously. So people are traveling less for the holidays and they're spending less time with their families when they come from politically, partisanly divided areas.
So politics really is ruining Thanksgiving, and it turns out that researchers now have your location data to prove it. Stacey, I think, was very generous when she described some of this as not anonymous. Obviously, I think the point that she is making is that if it's precise and it's location, it can be very personal indeed, with or without your name. And there's obviously a lot that can be learned about, well, do you spend Thanksgiving with your family? Again, hopefully the results here end up being aggregated and we get some useful research, but interesting to understand the kind of information. We are thankful to our watchers, our viewers. Stay tuned in the upcoming weeks for more of our privacy news TV. And I'm personally grateful for Stacey and many of the great policy counsels here who really do a lot of the hard work to help think through these issues so that FPF can be an articulate voice in discussing these. So thank you, and we are thankful to you.